I didn't want you. Still sad for me.
I will beg God to bestow his grace on me, so that I may learn to forgive you. Then I will ask him to bestow his grace on you, so that you might forgive yourself.
Hello everybody and welcome to the show where I spend the next 20 minutes glazing a 40-year-old comic, hopefully say something a little bit interesting, and today I will be starting by saying something that I think everyone can agree on. The X-Men are kinda assholes. Yes, I know, a take as scolding as the Arctic. While they're known as heroes fighting against oppression, they have caused as many problems as they've solved them. Intergalactic annihilation, increasing the wedge between humans and mutant relations, not afraid of throwing their own kind under the bus, making an ethnos, but everyone will also agree with this one thing. Nightcrawler is a pretty cool dude. Though everyone on the team has had their fair share of controversies. Nightcrawler, hey, that doesn't count. Everyone Krakoa gets one, okay? And that's the Ultimate Universe. Everyone sucked. Okay, well, you know, at least they stopped dating his stepsister. That's something worth noting. But yes, between the schism and grudges, everyone tends to put aside for everyone's favorite blue man. And who could blame them? Out of all the X-Men, he's arguably the most friendly guy you can meet. This scallywag could have met you 5 minutes ago, put his life on the line for you, and make your day just a little bit better while saving it. Having the unique power of teleportation, his pirate bravado, his iconic blue fur, make him one of the most popular X-Men, and hey, even the X-Men are playing catch-up with him. He was the first one to become a marketable plushie. Can Cyclops say that? I guess he can. So, join me today as I talk about Rivers Cuomo's favorite X-Men.
And Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler was seemingly almost an afterthought by Dave Cockrum. When he was in the Navy, a heavy typhoon at night kept him up, and if you're familiar with the feeling of being wide awake at 2 a.m., a rush of inspiration ran through his mind and he came up with the idea of an acrobatic demon who, after failing a mission in hell and not wanting to face repercussions, decided to stay on Earth, becoming a sidekick to the hero, the Intruder. A lot of Nightcrawler's design would actually be conceived during this era. The idea of a blue, maybe hairy, maybe not elf-like ears, an elongated face, the whole shebang, just minus the clothes. The guy was just in trunks. Problem being that the Intruder never really made it to print. But still, when we used the idea of Nightcrawler, he passed it along to DC, where after rejection, Dave Cockrum decided to add him to the all-new, all-different lineup. And after being told to give the guy some clothes and make him German, the rest was history. Now, the first thing you notice about Nightcrawler is, of course, his appearance. Unlike a lot of other mutants at the time, he can't just turn on and off his mutation or mask like a lot of his other teammates can. I mean, thank God for that. Who are you? He wasn't afforded the privilege of a normal life. He was always scarred as a mutant and plays a significant part in his backstory. Now, just like a lot of comic characters, and surprisingly a lot of X-Men characters, Nightcrawler has had many a retcon when it comes to his backstory. Originally, Claremont wanted Nightmare to be his father and even floated the idea of Roger Stern, the writer of the time for Doctor Strange, who was not a fan at all. Chris had come up with the latest of several crazy ideas and declared that Nightcrawler's father was Nightmare. And I replied with something like, "No, he's not. I'm not going to let you appropriate one of my character's major villains." As I recall, Len Wein crossed the room and shook my hand. And not too long after that, I did become the editor of the X-Men and was able to make sure that didn't happen for long enough that Chris eventually changed his mind. Jesus, Stern. And changed his mind he did, as he wanted Mystique and Destiny to be his parents, but due to it being deemed too controversial at the time, it was only made canon in 2023. Cementing Mystique and Destiny as his parents. But after a wicked mob carrying torches and pitchforks chased the poor mother and hiding her boy, he would of course be separated from his parents, wandering the countryside in the circus, where he would get a lot of the mannerisms we know Kurt for today. His bold personality, bolstered by theatrics and charisma, his keen acrobatics with a mix of swordplay, but also, most importantly, his kindred spirit. It was obviously he was there to be seen as some sort of freak to be pointed out by hecklers. Now, most people would meet such brash comments with anger, but Nightcrawler quickly learned to compose himself. I think when people say that he had a bad childhood, it's somewhat of a misnomer. Sure, it was difficult being an orphan, of course it was, but to say that it was all bad is kind of just a lie. That doesn't take into account that he was raised by a woman named Margali and gives him genuine compassion, unlike a lot of other people. She doesn't criticize him for his blue skin, and she gives him food and a place to call home. If it wasn't for her, in fact, I would argue that he wouldn't be as compassionate as he is. Because to be entirely honest, he does have every right to be bitter towards the world. But she stood up for him and took him in. Honestly, a lot of his background kind of gives me the vibes of the Universal monsters, probably because my first introduction to Nightcrawler was the animated series, making him resemble Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman. But it also gets the core idea of these characters, mainly Frankenstein, that these are monsters who are shunned by society for their appearance, but deep down have a heart of gold, which Nightcrawler has that in spades. To give you an idea how much this guy loves his friends, in Amazing X-Men #1, we see him in heaven contemplating, thinking of like, wow, this is so great. It could be better if he was with his friends. So he decides to leave shortly after. But just like Frankenstein, he would be once again chased by a fiery mob for his demonic appearance and joining the X-Men shortly after. What makes Kurt so compelling is just how genuine he is. He's not afraid to show his emotions and let someone lean on his shoulder. Despite his bravado and jokester attitude, he's not one to shy away from telling others his worries. Compared to everyone else, who's a little dysfunctional, to put it lightly. You can even see it in early Claremont, where Cyclops is mourning the departure of the original 5 X-Men and has been putting them through rigorous training to distract himself from confronting his own feelings. Kurt sees Scott contemplating and actually sits down to talk to the guy. Scott immediately asks if there's something he could do for him, but for the first time, Kurt turns it around on him and says that he was actually thinking of something that he could do for him. Scott's a guy who kind of closes himself off because, you know, he's the leader, he has to. It's just weird to see Nightcrawler break down this barrier that he constantly puts up. As Claremont's X-Men goes on, the team becomes closer together and he finds companionship with the team. For the first time, the people around him don't belittle him for his appearance, they accept him for his friendly personality. Kurt genuinely has appreciation for the mutant dream that Xavier pushes, that people and mutants can coexist despite their differences. Someone who is so different can be accepted through good deeds, a perfect representation of the dream that Nightcrawler embodies. This notion is immediately challenged, though, by the introduction to the latest member of the X-Men, Kitty Pryde. Joining the X-Men in issue 139, Kitty Pryde is an important piece to Nightcrawler's character. Despite being the same species, she's put off by his appearance. He tries being friendly, getting her drinks, or being the same shoulder everyone else cries on, but no matter what, she can't look past his mutation, exploring a new perspective of mutant life, that there is intersectional discrimination, that one mutant may be more accepted while the other is rejected for having a more outwardly and less desirable mutation. It calls into question the entire optimistic philosophy that Nightcrawler has, that maybe not every mutant is going to be integrated one-to-one to society. He shouldn't conform, they should accept him for who he is. Seeing someone like Kurt being used as a talking point for how mutants shouldn't be accepted in society for their differences is tragic. The most human X-Men, Nightcrawler, is constantly treated as the face of inhumanity of mutants for his appearance alone. In God Loves, Man Kills, Stryker points at Nightcrawler and dares question if he's even human. But in that same book, Kitty Pryde defends him at gunpoint, saying that Nightcrawler has every right to be bitter and reject the world for the way it is since his very birth. But in spite of all of that, faces it with a smile and would embrace it with open arms, that Kitty wishes that she was half the person Kurt was. Honestly, Kitty Pryde and Nightcrawler developed one of my favorite friendships in all of Marvel. While Nightcrawler has always been available as a shoulder to cry on, he never really had the same opportunity, and even worse, he didn't really allow himself to show that side often, causing him to suffer in silence. Until Kitty Pryde steps in during Excalibur, which I think exemplifies both their friendship and Kurt's flaw as a character. After the entirety of the X-Men were seemingly dead and Kurt was the sole survivor, he feels immense remorse that he was so happy to wake up and share a smile with the team he called family, but he wasn't able to do that, as he felt that if he also died, then he would at least be afforded the luxury to spend eternity with his friends. He shuts himself off from the ones who are there for him. trying to fight himself, but also in the back of his head wishes he could just die in the process so he can see his friends once more. But before anything goes awry, Kitty Pryde catches him in this elaborate suit, shutting down the simulation to berate him for doing something so reckless, asking him bluntly if he wanted to get himself killed. Though he appears angry at first, this does act as a wake-up call that Nightcrawler needed so desperately. Even if the X-Men are gone, if he gave up now, would confirm his biggest fear, truly failing his team. This here is the emotional core of their friendship, that they're each other's emotional foils. While Nightcrawler is compassionate and can reassure her, he tends to put others before him, but Kitty's assertiveness can break him out of that habit. They're healthy emotional outlets that act more as a family than just another team. Though my favorite part about this issue is after Kitty Pryde and Captain Britain's girlfriend is kidnapped, Nightcrawler seeks him out, but seeing him in a drunken stupor throws him off the edge of the lighthouse to wake him up. And straight up says, "And if perchance you fail to resurface, well, based on what I've just seen, no great loss." After waking up from his cold plunge and believing he was just almost murdered, he rushes in and finds Nightcrawler, who does not mince words, saying that he's not in the mood to be polite and tells him if he wants an apology, he needs to earn it. But maybe he won't be much of anything in his apathetic state, boldly claiming, even if they save them, what's good in that? They're just gonna get themselves killed like the X-Men before. But this enrages a newly revigorated Kurt, pushing him to the wall and digs deep into the has-been hero. "The devil, you say? When I say I'm a hero, I mean it in jest. I haven't the right to truly call myself one, and you have even less. All I am is a man trying to live life as best he knows, and be true to what he was taught. Those beliefs got my sister killed, and my dearest friends with her, my family. Sometimes, all I yearn more than anything is to have been given the chance, the privilege of standing with the X-Men and sharing their fate. It isn't fair. They're dead. It's far worse than I remain alive to grieve for them, but I'm alive, Braddock. And I must remain true to myself as to their memory. If that is more than you can handle, Captain Britain, I am sorry to trouble you. You don't understand. You don't know what it's like to actually die." No, perhaps not. But do you, Braddock, have even the slightest idea what it's truly like to live? What works so well in this part to me is that Kurt sees himself in Braddock, a man already drowning in a sea of self-destructive loathing over the loss of their family. That's what makes Kurt so angry in this scene. He's realized just how selfish this apathetic mindset is. That it's not fair that they're gone, but it's equally not fair to spit in the face of the ones that have fallen by giving up. We have to keep going to honor the sacrifices they've made. Just to wallow in your own self-pity would make their deaths pointless. But on top of that, it shows the range that Nightcrawler has when it comes to his emotional intelligence. He's not just some small being who will coddle you. No, if you're doing something extremely pathetic, like drinking your sorrows away, he'll tell it to your face. Something that Braddock needed to hear rather than what he wanted. And this does work as we see Brian Braddock become one of the founding members of Excalibur after putting the cowl back on. Honestly, if you want to read a good Nightcrawler book, I can't really recommend a lot of his solo work. I'm not the biggest on them, but genuinely, I think Excalibur is probably my favorite era of Claremont's writing because it has my favorite characterization of Nightcrawler and Kitty Pryde. If there's one title that this video makes you pick up, I implore you to read Excalibur. As well, I don't know where to put this, but I joked about the plush early on in this video, but genuinely, once ostracized for his appearance almost synonymous with the idea of being a devil, is able to break down and strip away that connotation through his good deeds. Turn that appearance into something of comfort, represented by the most overt interpretation, being a doll that one would literally cling on to for warmth. Even when he's not there physically, you can feel his presence by just looking at a doll of him. I know it's a little silly to say, but I don't know. It's a detail that I always really liked and I don't think many pointed out. Anyways, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Kurt's religion. For those who don't know, Nightcrawler is a Catholic, and one might assume he's this brooding type when it comes to his religion, drowning in Catholic guilt, but instead, for Kurt, religion is something he finds comfort in rather than condemnation. Though it's not the source of why he's so tender, it's rather a constant reminder that there is a universal good in this world. that love thy neighbor will get you far in this world and will break down any barrier someone puts up. It also runs parallel to Xavier's dream that both require faith. To believe in spite of a world that will constantly tell you it's impossible. And Kurt comes out as an optimist because he genuinely believes that his good deeds, as not only as a Catholic, but as an X-Men, will come to flourish into something beautiful. What I get out of this thematically, in tandem with Kurt's backstory of a feared monster, that it shows how certain members of religion will go to lengths recontextualizing and stretching the meaning of their texts to justify their persecution of its own members, under the guise of religious expression, but ironically, in their desperate pursuit to push out what they believe is unholy by targeting marginalized groups of people, become just as barbaric as the falsehoods they spout on about. And also, usually when I make these videos, I post up a reading guide or focus on a couple stories to dissect. I want to talk about something less good that comes to Kurt's religion. This year is Chuck Austin's Uncanny X-Men, released in the 2000s. It is quite possibly one of, if not the worst X-Men books, giving us iconic panels such as, "Think I'll go watch porn in my room if anyone's interested," or maybe the very bold claim of mutants can't get AIDS. And let's not forget when Angel tested the boundaries of that by having sex with an underage husk in front of not only her entire family, but the team. And finally when Alex threatened to piss on Iceman so he could reform. Sadly, Nightcrawler was a part of this team, and appears at the center of an arc. What was the focus of this arc, you ask? They wanted to make him the fucking Pope. Yes, you heard that right. A subset of extremist Catholics wanted to wait for the actual Pope to die, brainwash Kurt to disguise himself as said dead Pope, just so Nightcrawler could go in front of the entire world, revealing himself that the Pope was actually a devil, causing the world to enter a full nuclear meltdown, resulting in the rapture taking place. But there's just one minor, tiny little detail they kind of glance over when writing this arc. Catholics don't believe in the rapture. Yeah, no, that's an entirely evangelical idea that's unrelated to Catholicism. Despite some bizarre writing decisions, I'm not even going to touch on the whole stepsister debacle. He still remains one of the most earnest X-Men. He's the beating heart that the X-Men needs, even in their darkest moments. Someone could lift the team's spirits in the darkest of times. A reminder that a true rebellion lies in unadulterated optimism,